Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today I've got some farming tips and tricks. I guess for this one, what we're going to call this is how to improve your farming efficiency. This isn't just about, hey, don't waste this energy, don't use this resource, but thinking about how you can move through the game as quickly as possible with as little what I would call downtime in between and during farms. Downtime is this concept where you're not making progress in every area of your account, that something is gating you while everything else is catching up. The example I would use here is that you have every single character shard farmed for Galactic Legend Java, but now that you're gated behind, I didn't get enough Kyrotech along the way, I didn't get enough signal data, that kind of stuff, that would be where you're kind of in this dead time, right, where you're just kind of sitting around waiting to catch up one part of your resources in order to complete the farm. And we'll kind of talk about that because obviously Kyrotech is always something we're short on, but we'll get into this. I got a little bit too excited here, so please like and subscribe, comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Thank you to my channel members again. You guys are fantastic. Whether you are a Wampa or Jedi Master, or you have simply been invited onto the council. You may not be yet granted the rank of Master, but you're still a very important part of this channel. Thank you so much for being amazing members of this community. I hope your roster is improving through my tutelage. Let's get into our video. Alright, so let's kind of start off, and this is, primarily I'll say if you're in the mid game or in the later stage of the game, this is much more helpful. If you're an end game player like myself, you probably know all this stuff. So the first thing that I will say, when you're farming in this game, when you're kind of working through, one of the big areas that a lot of players mess up is they don't think about farming from an energy-based perspective. What I mean by energy-based is when you look at these three examples right here. The first one is 300 energy and you're going to get 5 characters. Down here, you're also going to spend 300 energy and only get 3 characters. Over here, down here, for these 4 Inquisitors, you're going to only spend 260 energy. So the mistake a lot of times that you see and where players go wrong is they'll think that, hey, I'm farming 5 characters right now and I'm spending 300 energy. They finish, Zori, and they add on Bosk, and then they finish Seer and they add on Darth Sion, and they finish Skiffguard Lando and they add Darth Nihilus because they want to keep farming 5 characters at the same time. But your problem you're running into is that you're now spending more energy to farm the same number of characters, right? You're upping your work rate, right? To, like, instead of, the way to describe this would be I was a runner, right? For those of you who don't know, I was a runner. And when you would run, one of the things that I would try to drill into my teammates was that when you're running up a hill, you don't want to increase your pace, right? You don't want to maintain your pace. That if you're going up a hill at 6-minute mile, you're going 6-minute miles and you start going uphill, you don't want to maintain that 6-minute mile pace. You're going to work harder doing that. And that could have the downside effect that you're in a race and you start working harder up that hill to maintain your same speed. Towards the end of the race, you might have expended too much energy doing that. It's better to maintain your effort and maybe slow down to 6 minutes and 30 seconds or 7 minutes up the hill. You get to the top and you feel the same way you did as you were running, before it. And now maybe you lost a little bit to that person you were racing, but you conserved a lot of energy. It's the same thing in Galaxy of Heroes, that whether you're spending 300 energy here or 300 energy for these 3, you're doing the exact same thing. You're making just as much progress in the game. So I want to encourage you to use the energy-based method rather than the number of characters. Because where this comes into play is that if you're going to say, I'm going to farm 5 characters at all time, well, what happens when they net to 300 energy because they're on 12 energy nodes compared to farming, characters that are on a 20 energy node? That excess 200 energy that you would save here can go to Kyrotech, but here you wouldn't. So what this method does is allows you to farm Kyrotech. It allows you to build other parts of your account with that extra energy, most likely Kyrotech, and that way you can maintain a balance between it. It's the method that I use to get where I am, and I think it's really important. I've talked a lot about this in other videos too, so I want to move on. All right, the next one, kind of sticking with energy based, is I feel a lot of players don't understand Cantina farming. I feel we truly do not grasp the way the Cantina farm really works. Let me explain. These two characters, Padawan Obi-Wan, Master Qui-Gon, they went into the Cantina. You can actually get these guys faster than going for Starkiller's requirements. I know none of you believe that. Let me show you the way this works. Padawan Obi-Wan is on a 10 energy node, right? So you're going to spend 10 energy for a single shard. And over here for Master Qui-Gon, you're going to spend 10 energy for a single shard. So you figure that for these shards that you're going to spend, right, you're going to need to spend 20 energy to, for every single, for those two shards, right? That your math kind of shakes out there that it's 20 total energy to spend. If you were going to farm, each one of them a day, you're going to spend 20 energy, right? You get that way that works, that it's, that for those things. Darth Talon is accelerated, but she's on a 16 energy node. So for each shard of Darth Talon, you're going to spend 8 energy. For Kyle Katarn, he's on a 12 energy node. At an accelerated rate, for each shard, you're spending 6 energy. And then for Dash Rendar, he's also on a 16 energy node, so you're going to spend 8 energy per shard of Dash Rendar. So when you add these guys up, you would end up spending 22 energy farming their shards compared to 20 farming these guys. Now, yes, 100% you're getting 3 characters here versus 2 characters here. But the impact of these 2 characters is in many ways more significant than these guys, from the basis of what they're able to give you from the Duel of the Fates events, for the raid, right? Like that's kind of, and I'm not trying to just rag on Starkiller. I'm just using them because it's a very easy one that we love to talk about Starkiller. But these guys you can get faster than Darth Talon and Dash and Kyle, right? Here's even another one that I think you might not think about here, is that Captain Tarples is also a Cantina character. So he's a single drop, he's not accelerated yet, on an 8 energy node. It will take you just as much time to farm Captain Tarples as it will to farm Darth Talon or Dash Rendar, because they're accelerated on a 16 energy node. That's the mistake that so often we make in the Cantina, is you only think about the accelerated character and not the fact that from an energy perspective, an unaccelerated character on a lower energy node could potentially be the equivalent or not that much harder to obtain, right? It's a very, very simple process. It's something I really recommend you deep dive into before you just start farming stuff saying, oh, I can't do that because they're not accelerated. You would be surprised how often you can make some really good moves in your account by farming some of these characters who aren't accelerated yet. And this even bleeds into the fact that going after someone like Tarples is the equivalent of Darth Talon. And then if you think, oh, I'd rather go for Starkiller than Jar Jar because Starkiller stuff is accelerated, just think that Darth Talon, substitutes for Captain Tarples. But then the energy you'd spend on Kyle and Dash can go directly towards farming signal data for your Gunkins. So it would actually be faster to get Jar Jar than it would be to get Starkiller. And again, you get the shards for these guys faster, which gets you Duel of Fates faster, which is a good thing. So wanted to bring that up about the Cantina. That's something we often miss. All right, next, the location-based farm. This is a very kind of simple thing to think about here. So someone like Grief Karga. Grief Karga has 3 locations we can farm him. The Galactic War Store, he's got a fleet node, and he's got this node that he shares with IG-11. So a lot of you would say, oh, I'm going to farm him in the Galactic War Store because that's the smartest place to get him. Well, if you actually look, before you make that decision, before you make that knee-jerk reaction, ask yourself where else you can get these characters. So for IG-11, the only place he's available is that node with Grief Karga. So the only free-to-play way to obtain IG-11 is farming this node. So you're going to get the Grief Karga shards anyway. You may as well just farm this node and save the Galactic War currency for somebody else. And that somebody else could be Mando. Oops, not the relic. Mando is available on 2 different hard nodes, but he doesn't share them with anyone, right? This fleet node and this hard node he doesn't share with anyone. And he's in the Galactic War Store. So now you can get Mando this way and you're more efficient that way. Another one to think about here, Moff Gideon. He has a Cantina location and a hard node. I'm going to tell you that unless that Cantina node has something unique to it that isn't somewhere else, always pick the hard node. I'd rather you farm hard nodes than Cantina, because Cantina is the only place you can get signal data. So the more work that you can get done in Cantina that's Cantina exclusive, the better off you're going to be. So someone like Moff Gideon, better to farm his hard node. The reverse of that would be someone like Kylo Ren Unmasked. Where's he at? Kylo Ren Unmasked has a hard node, but the Cantina node has his ship, and we need his ship, so you have to farm the Cantina node, right? Again, that ship is unique to this node. So kind of the reverse of Moff Gideon there. But think about that. Because you farm Moff Gideon on the hard node, you're opening up the time to farm Kylo Ren Unmasked via the Cantina, thus saving you signal data. It's kind of the way to think of those things. And then the last one I want to mention, just with Snips, she has a hard node and is available for the Cantina Battle Store. And when you look at Jedi Knight Anakin, he's only available via a hard node. So if you farm Snips with your Cantina currency, the energy you would have been spending on her can go towards Jedi Knight Anakin. And now, again, efficiency has been saved, right? You're more efficient because you're farming someone in a location that, hey, I'm going to save my hard node energy for people that I can only get on hard nodes. Bronzium data cards. The longer that you can put off farming some of these characters who are in the Bronzium packs, the better. Some of these you're like, oh, well, Phil, like, you know, you need some of these people. Correct. Like, you're going to need Mace Windu, and you're going to need Count Dooku, and Fives, and General Veers. Like, you'll need them for something. But maybe not right away. Same like Boba Fett. You probably want to get Boba Fett before he's in the Bronzium packs. But some of these characters, if you can hold off, if you can just earn their shards via the Bronziums, it can save you a decent amount of resources. Particularly someone like Royal Guard, who you need for Emperor Palpatine. You need him for the Lord Vader team. If you don't need him right away, he's a brilliant character that you can just kind of farm via the Bronzium data cards. If you're in the early parts of the game, just farm these things. There, I got 2 shards of Lobot. You do not need to farm Lobot. Just bide your time, build as many of him as you can from the Bronzium cards, and then when you're ready to, when you actually need that character, go ahead and start farming their node or wherever the location is, and you've saved yourself a lot of time because of building from Bronziums. Now, going back up to this point up here, where I talked about, hey, energy-based farming. If you're kind of in this position where you're not sure what to do, you're like, hey, I don't really need anything right now. I'm just kind of building stuff. If you're in doubt, farm character shards. I say this all the time. It's something I love to bring up in farming videos. I'd much rather be behind in character shards. I'd much rather be in need of gear than in need of character shards. Here's the way I would explain it. If I want shards of Tusken Chieftain, I can only get him via this node right now. That's the only place I can get him. Trip 0, I need those. Oh, look, only free-to-play way is his node. Let's go to Trip 0. Again, only way, his node. I've mentioned this before. I feel like it's very important to bring this up again. I'd rather you be behind on gear because I can go buy Kyratex with a ton of other resources. I can go buy everything else with other resources. I can't get the shards. I feel like I need to mention this a lot because it is important that you recognize this, that this is one of those ways to be efficient is understanding the things that you can rush versus the things you can't. Because you'd rather be in a position, think about this current raid right now with the requirements that are in the raid here. The reason, now obviously I had bought this Jedi bundle, but let's say I wasn't going to buy the Jedi bundle. The fact that I had built up everything else for this raid through just kind of building it over time and built those shards because I knew I would eventually need them, or in case I eventually needed them, puts me in a much better position. So think through that process that you might not need X character right now, but you'd rather have them because the minute you do need them, do you want to be waiting around on that hard node? And that even goes all the way to your character stores, right? Any character that's in the Galactic War store, Fleet Arena store, Cantina store, wherever. Don't sit here and just start spending for shard shop currency. I know that's what you think. I'm telling you, it's so much better to really understand, hey, I want every single character 7-star, because the minute you need them, you'd rather have them at your fingertips than having to wait around. I'm telling you, it's a really, really big mistake I see a lot of players make. All right, next goes to Galactic Legend farming, and this goes down to the requirement order and when you're gearing them up. So often I see players go in and they're like, yeah, Phil, I'm halfway done with Jabba, or I'm halfway done with GL Leia. And you look, and they've got, like Wicket and Lando Calrissian and Admiral Akbar, Captain Han Solo, Rolo, Chief Chirpa, and like Lobot, done. That they have all the Relic 3s and the Relic 5s done. And then the really good characters like Captain Rex and Commander Luke Skywalker, Scout Trooper, R2, Drogon, 3PO, and Chewie, they're all sitting at like, whatever relic level or none unrelicked. Listen, it's the same. You're going to take the same amount of time. I mean, like, seriously, you'll probably spend the same amount of time in this farm going for the easy stuff first versus going for the hard stuff, right? I'd actually argue you'd go faster if you went for the harder relics first, if they benefit your account. Think about Galactic Legend Ahsoka right now, right? I'm in the middle of this farm for Galactic Legend Ahsoka. I could easily relic Asajj right now, right? I've got the resources to do it. I can take her to Relic 5. But I don't need Asajj right now. I don't need Ezra right now. I did take my Commander Ahsoka Tano and Snips to Relic 9 because they're characters I can use today. The reason I don't want to gear these guys up, I don't need to yet. I'd rather have those relic materials available for when I get Night Trooper or the next batch of things if there's characters that I use. When you're farming Galactic Legends, you put your roster in this awkward position where you have relics invested in places that you don't really need. Think about going for Jabba, right? I had to relic Jawa. I had to relic, you go through some of the other bounty hunters that you have to farm for Jabba. Are you really happy about farming Greedo and Aura Singh? Like, I didn't really use them, but I had to farm them for, Jabba. The idea that I'm trying to get across to you is that you don't want to build those guys early. They don't help you. Build the characters that actually help your account, even if they're Relic 7s or Relic 8s. If they help your account, they're so much better for you. So the order of building requirements is so crucial to your account, and that way you're getting the benefit of that character for a longer period of time. Leia is a great example here. Like, I've got Luke and 3PO and Chewie, Captain Drogon, Captain Rex. Farming in that order is so important. I have a video for every single Galactic Legend. And this is stuff I've covered before, but I got asked a couple of farming questions, and that's what spawned this video. I should have said that earlier. Finally, the Cantina conundrum. One of the biggest mistakes that you need to save yourself from is having this timeline order in your head that I'm going to do these things, and it all kind of revolves around the Cantina. So the example I would use, all right, I'm going to get my Padawan Obi-Wan and Master Qui-Gon to Relic 9. Then I'm going to work on getting my characters for Dr. Aphra. Then I'm going to relic them. Then I'm going to work on the relics for Asajj and Ezra. What you have to recognize through those sentences I said, it sounds very easy, right? You're like, oh yeah, that sounds easy. But think, okay, I've got to get these guys to Relic 9 first. Then I've got to farm Hondo, and I've got to farm Sana out of the Cantina. Then I've got to farm the relics I need for the Aphra team. Then I'm going to continue to farm relics that I need for these two. And by then, there's other needs, right? The Cantina conundrum we often find ourselves in is when you're thinking through the way you're going to farm in the Cantina, recognize that when you're farming a character, you're not getting the signal data. So if you're trying to do a bunch of relics, I would not recommend going into anything that's a heavy Cantina farm. And that goes like for, Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan, who are very relic intensive. If you're trying to get them and get the Queen Amidala team up and running, you need to be prepared that it's going to be a little bit before that happens, because you've got to farm them and then build all of the relics you need for that team. And this is the one time I would say where assault battles really can make a difference, because that is the only way that you can really naturally earn a, signal data on a regular basis, because there is the new Duel of the Fates now. That assault battle does give you some signal data, but like today, I think I only got the green signal data, which is still good, but that was all I got. But the other side of that is the other assault battles will give you some, white, green, and blue signal data every single month. It's nothing crazy, but if you can have a steady income of that, it does help make some of those Cantina farms easier if you're going to like Relic 5. That's the end of the video, guys. I wanted to try and get some of this farming tips and tricks out here for you. I think this is stuff that is important, and some of these things I've covered before, but when I get asked questions from players, and a lot of times it's necessary for me to kind of redo this, if you will, right? To kind of get this out here, because I feel like players miss it or they don't watch the whole video. So let me know your thoughts. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.